I used to love art. I used to love making art. I was a painter and I loved painting things. I really enjoyed it. Well, that was until I came across that painting. And everything after I picked up that painting out of the trash can has really fucked up my life to the point it doesn't even feel real about all the shit that has happened to me. I still can't even explain this. Now, what I'm about to share, I know I'm gonna have a lot of skeptics, but it's okay. You don't have to believe me. This is a story for anyone who does believe me. And let me start off by saying that I, at times, don't even believe what happened. It happened 5 years ago. I was 19 and I finally got my own place. I wanted to be an artist. I was a painter. And I was so happy that I got to move out of my parents' place because I couldn't really feel free to paint without my parents thinking that I was wasting my life away being a painter. They wanted me to be something different, something that I wasn't. But I was intrigued about having my own apartment because now I can work and focus 100% on my talent and my goals. After I moved everything in, I started to buy painting equipment, painting studios and art studios and everything I needed. Not only was I a painter, but I also was a digital artist as well. When I came home one night, I was about to go upstairs and head to my apartment when I noticed a trash can was slightly open and there was some kind of picture frame sticking out of it. I slowly walked towards that trash can and I opened up the top of the trash can and there it was. It was a really beautiful painting. It was a painting of a woman from the 1800s. She was wearing a long dress and holding a flower. She had brunette hair. This painting, it was really nice. And I wanted to find out who drew this painting. But I was getting really tired and I wanted to go home and head off to bed. So I took the painting with me back to my place. I closed the door and after I got done with everything, I went off to bed. The next morning when I woke up, I forgot that I had the painting. The painting was sitting in a chair next to my bed. I was about to take my eyes off of the painting when I noticed something different about it. I noticed there was what looked to be blood coming down from her eyes, and her expression changed as well. Before, the painting of her looked it really nice. The woman in the painting was happy with so much hope and love in her eyes. This time around, the painting of her emotions changed as she looked it real sad. Like every bad possible thing that can happen to a human being has happened to her. That's what I picked up from her facial expression. But it was those blood tears that ran down the woman in the painting's eyes that really kind of creeped me out. I grabbed the painting and I put it in my closet and I closed my closet up. As I was getting ready to leave out, I noticed on my phone when I looked at it, I had 15 missed phone calls. It was from my friend David. It felt kind of weird to me that he would call me this much. And then I saw several voicemail messages as well. I listened to the messages and it was David's mother. And what she said on the other line made my heart drop and fucked up my whole entire day. I tried to get a hold of all of David's friends as much as possible. Listen, I don't really like saying this over the phone, but David was in a terrible car accident and he didn't make it. I'm so sorry. He's dead. When I heard those words, David is dead, my whole world shape-shifted. Everything about life changed. There was a sudden shift in my life. It felt like someone grabbed the ground and snatched it underneath me. It felt like someone just took my heart out, and I'm trying to gasp for air, but I can't seem to catch any air in my lung. I can feel hot, warm tears coming down my eyes. David was like a brother to me. We were very, very, very close as friends. He was there for me in my hardest times, and I was there in his hardest times. And the fact that he's no longer here, it really did something to me. He was someone that I turned to for good advice, and now he's dead. I remember that day, I sat down on the floor and began to weep uncontrollably. I couldn't even believe this was real. I couldn't imagine my life without David in it. It felt like a part of me just went deceased. A month had passed after David had died. I was trying my absolute best trying to cope with a world without him. As I was cleaning some stuff out of my closet, I noticed that painting again. But this time, it looked even more different. There was no blood tears coming out of the woman's eyes in the painting, but her facial expression changed again. This time, her eyes were wide, and her hands were over her cheeks, and it looked like she was screaming. I couldn't describe it. Actually, scratch that. If you've seen that iconic painting, the Scream painting, then you would get my definition of how the woman in the painting looked. It freaked me out. I dropped the painting on the ground, and I threw it out in the trash. Something about that painting was just freaking me out. I don't know why. The next day, I got everything prepared as I was getting ready to open up my art store for the very first time. It was a grand opening. David left in a will $50,000 for me to have to help me start up this business. This was something I always dreamed of. I buy different arts from across the world and I sell them at my store. Plus, I make some of my art and I also sell it. But as I was doing so, I got a phone call, and when I answer it, I don't even know how to put this into words, but I honestly felt like I got hit with a freight train. It was my father, and he told me some really shocking and heart-shattering news. He told me, "Son, I don't know how to tell you this, but your mother had a massive heart attack, and she didn't make it. I'm very sorry, son. She's dead." I sat back, listening to my father tell me everything that was happening, but for some reason, it wasn't registering in my head that my mother was gone. It just felt like this was being told to another person. There was no way that he was telling me this. And this was coming after a month and a half after David's death. There was no way. I mean, sure, me and my mother had our differences, but I loved her. And now, he's telling me that my mother is gone? 2 losses in less than 2 months. I hanged up on my father, and I started to laugh. I didn't know how to process this feeling. This was just too much. There was no way. It was way too much. And as I was thinking about my mother's death, it started to dawn on me. Something seemed weird. And then all of a sudden, that painting just fell out of my closet, and it landed in the middle of my room. I looked at it, and I started to make a connection. When my friend David died, well, before he died, this woman in the painting had blood coming down her eyes, like she was crying tears of blood. And then, the next day, David dies. And then now, when she changed her facial expression again in a painting of her in this shocking, horrified look, my mother died. This had to be it. This painting was cursed. It had to be some kind of bad omen that death was nearby. Each time this painting was changed, each time the painting looks different, that means someone in my family or someone who is close to me, whether it's friends or family, someone dies. But then again, no, there was no way a painting could predict someone's death. But then I noticed when I looked at the painting again, the woman in the painting had a shocked look to her face again, but this time she had her hands over her eyes and it looked like she was screaming. And would you believe, 2 days later, my father died at the hands of a brutal robbery gone wrong, and he was just in the middle of planning my mother's funeral. And now I have to plan both my mother and my father's funeral. 2 weeks had passed since the passing of both my parents. I tried my very best to get rid of that painting, but each time I do, somehow it reappears in my apartment in odd places, like under my bed or in my bathroom. Each time that painting looked different, with the woman's facial expression changing, someone else dies. So far, I lost it 3 best friends and 6 relatives, including 2 of my brothers, after this woman's facial expression changed. All this death that happened in such a short amount of time, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. As I grabbed the gun that was locked up in my safe, I put a bullet inside of it. This painting was cursed. It took all the people that were close to me, whether it was friends or family, and it took their lives away. I looked at the painting again as I was seeping down into a deep, bottomless pit of depression, and the woman's facial expression changed again. This time, it was a very creepy smile from ear to ear, with a message on the painting, and it said, "It's your time now."